I thank the gentleman very much for yielding, and I rise to oppose H.R. 2575. The majority's obsession with attacking the Affordable Care Act is unprecedented, and they have never let the truth stand in their way. Today's bill is no exception. Let's call this bill for what it really is. It's a big favor to millionaires and billionaires at the expense of working families. This legislation is perfect for the owners and CEOs of big low-wage companies like Walmart and McDonald's. It says that you can have your employees work 30, 35, 39 hours a week without providing one iota of health care coverage. That's a great deal for the Walton family, which already has a net worth of nearly $145 billion. One family, $145 billion. And that's a great deal for the CEO of McDonald's, who makes $9,200 an hour, $9,200 an hour. But it's a terrible deal for America's workers. It means that not a penny of the revenues from these hugely profitable companies will go towards supporting health insurance for the bulk of their workers, all the while those employees continue to make as little as $7.25 an hour. And it means that the American taxpayers will be stuck with picking up the tab. The Republicans have decided to bring this bill to the floor, even though they have no pay for, which means that this is a very pure form of deficit spending. You're incurring $75 billion worth of expenses for the taxpayers, and you have no way to pay for it. But rather than have these companies provide health insurance to their workers, you're willing to add it to the deficit of the United States for the next 40 or 50 years. I remember when that party stood for deficit reduction. Now it's deficit creation. It's deficit creation. So let's get it straight so everyone can understand. The American people will be paying $75 billion more, so the likes of the Walmarts don't have to provide their employees with health care. Walmart made $16 billion in profits last year. Target made $2 billion in profit. McDonald's made more than $5 billion in profit. And they can't afford to provide hourly employees with health care? Give me a break. All of this to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Because let's be clear, there's nothing in the Affordable Care Act that forces an employer to cut workers' hours. In fact, the nonpartisan CBO stated that there's no compelling evidence. This is the Congressional Budget Office. There's no compelling evidence that part-time employment has increased as a result of the Affordable Care Act. So to benefit the richest of the rich, the Republicans want to pass this bill the very week that we learned that more than 10 million people have gained coverage under the Affordable Care Act. The Republicans want to strip 1 million people of their employer-based health coverage, tossing them into the government programs and leaving the less underinsured and having the taxpayers pick up the bill. And this all the while, the Republicans continue to block a minimum wage increase for these very same workers. A minimum wage increase that Goldman Sachs says will give the economy a bigger than usual boost. But they're not going to vote for the minimum wage increase, is what they tell us. So what are they going to do instead? They're going to continue to stand on the throat of the American economy. Because all over this country, where we've raised the minimum wages in cities and states and towns, small businesses are hiring. There's more customers on Main Street. But they're not going to allow that to happen nationwide. Instead, they're going to provide $75 billion of new deficit for these businesses who pay their taxes, for these workers who pay their taxes. Then they'll continue to block unemployment insurance, another boost to the economy. People on that insurance, with unemployment insurance that has run out, if we extend it, they're going to spend that money immediately because they have to take care of their families, they have to buy groceries, they have to pay the rent. They're customers on Main Street. But they're not going to do that. Economists left and right tell us one of the biggest boosts to this American economy is immigration reform. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to give our economy that boost. But they're going to add $75 billion to the deficit. But they're not going to let somebody have food stamps for the deficit. They're not going to let somebody have health care for the deficit. But they're going to reward the big employers for throwing people off their health care rolls. This is some plan you have for America. This is some plan you have for working families. Clearly, when the newspapers and the editorial boards accuse you of doing nothing in Washington, they misread you. You're doing great harm to the budget. You're doing great harm to health care, and you're doing great harm to these low-income workers, but you're doing a great favor for the richest of the rich in this country. I yield back the balance of my time, knowing that I had not run out yet. Thank you.
The gentleman's time has expired.